As her behavior worsened, Vivien Leigh was offered a part that dangerously mirrored her own mental state. Olivier seemed unable to let go of his friendship with Tynan. Vivien felt increasingly isolated and insecure, and she started displaying bizarre behavior.
Vivien was having one of her spells, and her spells were cyclic, but ever since Ken began attacking her in the newspapers, those spells had become more and more often.
Dinner at Notley. Vivien was in a high manic state. "Let's see how Ken looks in armor," she cries. Larry, drinking brandy in great gulps, looks up, nods heavily and goes on drinking. I retire behind a screen and put on the bloody corselet. Conversation continues as before, nobody referring to the fact that I am dressed as the Maid of Orleans.
They weren't accepting it in the beginning as an illness, so her behavior was rather strange. She was annoying. You could see it from time to time, and then all of a sudden would be this sort of cuddly stuff that was acting to try and make it look all right. The kissy boos that went on. But it was strained.
In her biggest break since Scarlett O'Hara, Vivien flew to New York to play a film role from which she would never fully recover.
I played Stella Kowalski, married to Stanley Kowalski, played by Marlon Brando, and my sister is the role that Vivien Leigh played. At the end of the day, Vivien would get the makeup off, hair, relax, all of that, and go out and party every night.
What if it costs us being very like that?
That's what is a tribute from an admirer of mine.
And then weekends, she would have gatherings every Saturday, every Sunday afternoon. It was amazing. She just never stopped.
Lies! Lies inside and out, all lies!
Never inside. I never lied in my heart.
She said it was very frightening because she said it was like looking into a cavern of identity of oneself. And that frightened me greatly because I knew I had to go into that. If I was going to do the part, I had to reveal parts of myself. And as she rightly said, who the hell wants to reveal things that people have no business to know?
Vivien's performance won her a second Oscar for Best Actress. On returning to London, she seemed incapable of escaping the sexually charged madness of Blanche Dubois.
I had 9 months in the theatre of Blanche Dubois. Now she is in command of me. I feel she wants to control, and at times I must let her.
I was staying at Notley. No sooner had I stripped to my Y-fronts and fallen asleep than I felt the sheet slowly turned back and a hand placed on my genitals. It was Vivien, naked under the peignoir. I began to respond, and then suddenly thought how impossible it would be to betray a man under his own roof. A really cock-crinkling thought. I muttered it to Vivien, who pouted a bit and tiptoed away.
When she went into her spells, it was almost anyone who was around, she would begin sexual advances, which really was very embarrassing to people on the set, the cameraman, you know, people like that.
Whispers of scandal now followed the Oliviers everywhere. On the Hollywood social circuit, both were reported to be having affairs. There were even rumors that Larry was in a relationship with the American comedian Danny Kaye.
Olivier could be very camp. He could be very flowery. But I don't think it necessarily follows that, you know, he was dancing at the other end of the ballroom.
He wasn't into that. He always had his mind on the career. And that was one of the breaking points between them. It's one of the points on which they didn't agree, because Vivien said, you know, there's also a time for fun. Olivier was very happy to be Britain's greatest actor, but she wanted something more. What she wanted now was this relationship and this world of the senses.
Whilst filming Elephant Walk in Ceylon, Vivien began a passionate affair with her young and beautiful co-star, Peter Finch.
Peter Finch is not my favourite man, you have to understand. Any man who's having an affair with your stepmother, you're bound to loathe. I couldn't bear him. His Aussie urbanity and his smooth talk.
It was fatal attraction. She was very attracted to the gypsy in Peter. Peter's freedom and his wildness. He was into women, he was into drink. Vivien could drink, you know, and Vivien was into men.
My darling, so sad to think your visit here impossible. Finish shooting the 21st. Strong possibility fly direct to California. Perhaps you could come there. Best idea.
My father was a man. Of course he was upset. His wife had an affair with somebody else. Wouldn't you be? He was a man, for God's sake.
I don't think either of them could be sexually bound. Peter certainly went from woman to woman because he was so desperately attractive.
During Elephant Walk, she had a very bad, very public breakdown. She was taken off the film, and Elizabeth Taylor was put on, and she and Peter broke up at that time.
Nurses were waiting to take care of actress Vivien Leigh, who was returning home from Hollywood, suffering from an acute nervous breakdown. On hearing of his wife's illness, Sir Laurence Olivier flew immediately to her side and has brought her home for a complete rest.
It's been a very bad time. Getting her home was an incredible nightmare. She set up the strongest resistance, and I was her worst enemy.
Vivien went to the home of a very well-known costume designer and had a shock treatment done there because she didn't want her to get out in public.
Miss Leigh's symptoms, especially her overt sexuality and persistent overdrive, makes me feel that for a person in her position, her manic phase is much less desirable than the depressed phase.
With that illness, it was difficult to live with her sometimes. You know, there was nothing one could do about it, and to be near to people that we love very much, it was very, 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 very tough. And it was just one of those awful things.
Her first nervous breakdown was when I was at school. I suppose I was age 15. And it was all over the newspapers, page after page, every single newspaper, weeks on end, which was awful, awful.